Hi, everybody. Happy to be here and have a chance to talk to you today. Jamie McDonald. I'm the founder of GiveCore. And I just want to say I am a Philly native, grew up actually at 16th and Spruce, right up the street. So it's always fun to be back. And GiveCore is a little bit of what these guys did on a custom basis is what we do on a national basis for nonprofits. We provide a platform that has elements of crowdfunding, peer-to-peer fundraising, and then community-based fundraising aimed to help communities build armies of givers to support their efforts. And so we work with everything from cities like Baltimore to individual giving communities like colleges and universities and large nonprofits. And our Baltimore site, if you go to givecore.com and you kind of click at the top, you'll actually see that our ongoing year-round 365, our sort of commitment to Baltimore is that we have a 365-day-a-year giving site where any nonprofit in the community can have a page, and a citizen that just wants to go and find their passion. You know, they may know they care about animals, and we've got, 30 animal organizations or environmental or other causes. And so that's what our site does in Baltimore all year round. And for that reason, we're sort of considered a pretty neutral convener in our town. And so, great. Let's do it in both ways. And so we, like a number of you probably, we heard about GivingTuesday 2012 and kind of in a very loose way put it out to the nonprofits that we connect with in Baltimore and said, look, obviously you can use your GiveCore page for this, if we can provide any support, and we were excited about it. And it was one of those things where we did a little bit, but it ended up being the biggest day that we'd ever had on the Baltimore site. It just, people get this concept. I mean, we're very connected with Henry and with the group in New York as well, and I think that one of the things that's just so important about what they did is they made it so easy and understandable. And so, people sort of got just, and I think the contiguous nature of it to Black Friday and Cyber Monday just makes it easy for people to sort of say, okay, I did my weekend thing, I'm shopped out, like it's time to, I want to kind of feel good, I want to start feeling connected to the holidays. And so, but we decided that if we were going to invest in 2013 in trying to do something meaningful for Baltimore. And, Baltimore is like the little engine that could, we get lots of, bad media nationally, but it's like this great city that sort of, has this constant inferiority complex relative to Philadelphia and Washington and all of our neighbors. And so, so we, as a team, my colleagues and I sat down and said, look, we've got this audience of, we have a couple hundred nonprofits that are always on our site. We have a great audience of givers. Our Baltimore site has, 15, 20,000 people a year who give money through it to local nonprofits. And what could we do to really make GivingTuesday something bigger and more meaningful in our community? And so we decided that the thing to do was to set a big-ass goal, pardon my language, but to sort of say, look, we can just put it out there and say, everybody go team, let's do a big thing. Or we could say, we're going to be the most generous city in America. And so that's what we did. And we started very late. We started, our first meeting was in September. And I've said to people, I think, and sometimes time can be both a friend and an enemy. And so in our case, I think that actually the short time in the first year made it easy for people to commit because we could say to them, look, it's 3 months of your life and it's either going to work or it's not. So we decided that there was a core group of 7 organizations slash kind of thought leaders in Baltimore that if they weren't prepared to participate, it probably couldn't work. So before we made the goal public, we brought together this group of people, and in our community it's the Associated and it's United Way and a representative from the mayor's office, and we sort of sat down and we said, look, can you guys sign on to this? Can you sign on to say we want to be the most generous city in America? We think it's going to take about $5 million. And I was shocked, but it took about 5 minutes, and everybody's like, yes, we'll do that. And we said, look, what's the worst that can happen? We fail, and we raise less, but we had a big goal, and we wanted to do this really big thing, and so that was great. Our team, we 3 of us at GiveCore kind of were the team that did the kind of the work on the inside with a group of 2 other committees, a kind of a marketing committee that worked with us that was a handful of people, and then a group that was doing more of the kind of the direct outreach, just making sure that the nonprofits that needed anything kind of had the support that they needed. And I would say that the thing that we did, and this ties in, Eileen, to what you were saying, is that we didn't have any rules. So we were very clear that this is for any way that anyone wants to participate. We didn't mandate that they go through our site. The only thing that had to run through, we were managing the matching fund, so we raised a bunch of matching funds from some partners. And so the only way we could even figure out how to disperse the matching funds was there had to be a central place. So people that wanted to participate in the matching fund pool, and a number of nonprofits created their own matching fund pool. So again, we weren't trying to control it, but the funds that we raised that were very aimed at kind of the grassroots nonprofits, that had to run through one place just so we had a way of disseminating it. But we made it about all forms of generosity. People could volunteer that day. They could give things. They could, we had sort of on Twitter, without us planning it, a little like matching service, sort of happened where people said, we need 2 new computers, and somebody said, I have 2 old computers, and that was sort of happening on Twitter. So that was great. And the result is that we blew past our goal. The actual all-in, I mean, we don't, because within the 24 hours we publicized, we were at 5.7 million. We actually ended up closer to $6 million by the time all the organizations had reported. And it was hundreds of nonprofits. I think across the city there were, I think, 240 nonprofits that participated. I'm going to show you some fun examples of the way that businesses participated in the campaign. They were a huge part of our success. The mayor was really, we've got a young, pretty dynamic mayor, and she just got it because she's very active on social media, and she's very into sort of the power of the crowd. And she just, she got it. And this is her holding up one of our signs. So this was the day before, but, oh, sorry. But she did, she sort of from about 6 weeks out ahead of the campaign through her social channels was very involved. She was on the Today Show being interviewed about what we were doing in Baltimore. And, the campaign, because I think Henry was calling us every day saying, are we going to hit the goal? Are we going to hit the goal? Not because we cared about the dollars, but just because we had set this big goal. And he wanted the ability to say, yes, we have a most generous city in America. So anyway, so we had a lot of good energy around it. And so what this group asked me to really focus on today, and I don't know what the mix is of you guys in terms of individual nonprofits versus conveners, but I'm going to take you through what were our top lessons learned, and hopefully there are things that you can apply in your thinking about Giving Tuesday. Some are more focused on what you as an individual nonprofit might be able to do, and others are focused on what you might be able to do collectively as conveners. And then at the end, we have a Giving Days ebook that we created that basically takes all of what we learned in our campaign, and it is literally all around the world now. We started publicizing this with the help of Giving Tuesday and the UN Foundation, and it's been translated into Portuguese and Spanish, and it's crazy. I mean, I've written a few I do a good amount of writing, and I've written a few ebooks, and none of them has had anything like this uptake. So we're going to provide the link to that. You can all download it for free and feel it digs into much more concretely to sort of at a high level what I'm going to talk about with these lessons learned. So first things first, think big. I think that nonprofits, and I get it, like it's easy to be conservative because you hate to take a risk and you don't want to go out there. But the problem is if it's just business as usual, if it's just another day raising another couple $1,000s, it's going to be hard to get people to sort of stretch and go beyond what you would ask them to do on a normal day. And so if you want them to do something more, you've got to do something more. You've got to kind of give them something big to hang their hats on. So I think project-based fundraising is a huge part of it. If you've got something really tangible that people can get their arms around and, sort of say, I can fund one of those, or I can fund half of one of those. I think that tangibility is really a powerful part of making days like this a success. But really, extraordinary goals, I think, are at the heart of the success. When I listen to some of what happened in other cities around the country, a lot of them also did great things, but they didn't put it under the umbrella of a single goal. And I think it makes it hard to sort of get people to rally. In Baltimore, everyone knew not only were they going to do good for their own nonprofit by participating in a day like this, but they were also going to do good for our city by becoming the most generous city in America. And people so got into that. So the next one is to convene. You need that core group, and I don't think it has to be big. Again, in our case, I think the core group in total was maybe 20 people. But you know, everyone has good ideas, and you also need that hub of people who can sort of be the basis of the viral spreading of things. And I'm not talking about just social media. I'm just talking about the goal, the mission, the media, you know, engaging the various constituent communities, which we'll talk about in a minute. But all kind of under the guise that we're part of, you know, again, under that notion of having a big goal. These are the people that are sort of saying, yes, we're there, we're with, and they're the top, you know, in our case, they were the top thought leaders in town who were saying, yes, we want to, you know, we want Baltimore to be the most generous city in America, join with us. The next piece is to amplify under a unified brand. And you know, if you think about everything you do in your life, you know, the things that are often memorable are memorable because they're under some sort of kind of simple, easy to understand concept that you can get your arms around. And you know, branding is not a new thing, but I think in our campaign, we didn't want it just to be Giving Tuesday. We wanted to have something that felt very authentically Baltimore, and that was what we did with our Be More Gives More name. That was our logo. Giving Tuesday is very prominent in that, but Be More is kind of a thing in Baltimore. Like, you know, you can use it with anything. You know, Be More Good. I saw one. You know, there was some conference that's happening that's, you know, Be More Resourceful. Right. So it's something that's used. It felt very natural. We brought everything together under a sort of just a landing page type of site that that publicized what we were doing, but also provided at the top, you can see the tools, the rewards, the partners, are the ability for nonprofits to report in on Giving Tuesday, because again, we were not about you have to work with us. We were like, anybody can participate, use our materials, use the brand. If you want to use your online site, great. If you want ours, great. But if you're not using ours, report in, because we want you to count toward the tallies. And so all that happened under this Be More Gives More brand. And then to make sure that that brand kind of carried out into the community, each one of those 20 main partners had a group of other partners that sort of acted in kind of a hub and spoke capacity. So we were very clear that you know, we could only make this work if my friends tell your friends kind of thing. So we need to sort of proliferate it through the community. And it was a little slow starting in September and the early part of October, but by the middle of October and into November, people were really excited about it because all these nonprofits were signing on, and you know, we had some people starting to put up matching fund dollars, and we had some companies starting to do some stuff, and I'll show you some of that in a minute. This isn't for everyone, but in our case, we really wanted to focus on all kinds of generosity. And so things came from all over the place in really unexpected, and in some ways, the most fun parts of the campaign were the things that came in unexpected ways. So one of our favorite stories of the campaign was that we had an elderly woman who called, or she must have called, because I don't recall her even having email, but she called us and she said, I don't have any money to give. I want to be part of Giving Tuesday, but I have an old grand piano that I haven't played in 15 years because I've got arthritis in my fingers, and I want to find a music organization to give it to. And so we connected her with a music organization that has, and they got this beautiful grand piano, which apparently was a really nice piano that this woman had just had sitting in her house. And that was just one of those things that, because of all the sort of excitement about being part of this Day of Generosity in Baltimore, we were able to have. So a couple of other fun things that are here. We had an ice cream shop team up with one of our local granola companies, and they created a special flavor for the Be More Gives More campaign, and they gave a percentage of the proceeds toward the matching fund pool. Everybody's kind of favorite pizza shop did a Be More Gives More pizza, and that's not actually what it looked like. It was really good, like caramelized onion pizza, but they did that as their marketing campaign. We had a PR guy in town create basically playing cards of philanthropists in town, and these are not like fancy people. This is just like everyday givers, but who, you know, and these would get spread all around on social media, so all kinds of fun things. We didn't go looking for this stuff. This stuff happened because we had this really kind of authentic Baltimore-focused campaign that got people excited. But you can't forget the big guys. And so we were very clear from day one when I said that there was that group that we got together. We've got an organization in Baltimore called the Association of Baltimore Area Grant Makers that really works with all the big foundations. And we said, look, you guys often operate sort of out of the realm of the everyday giver. You know, join with us on this day. Make grants on that day. You know, do matching fund, like whatever way you want to participate, be part of it. And we had about 13 of our largest foundations do something on that day. Some of them made grants to organizations that day. Some, again, provided matching funds. Others just, you know, we've got a couple that are very active on social media, and they were sort of out there participating. And this year we expect that number to be much bigger. So, you know, and it was exciting because I think they felt very much, you know, like they were in the same conversation with the everyday givers. And that's not something that happens often in a city like Baltimore, and probably not in most cities. You were talking about the how-tos. You know, we were very focused on the content because a lot of our partners, particularly on the Baltimore site, which are very small grassroots nonprofits, you know, with often 1 or 2 people in development or fundraising, you know, we created a rich, very deep kind of pool of assets that people could use throughout the campaign, and you're welcome to use them too. They're all live on BMoreGivesMore.com. Anybody can go to it. You can download our you can just put Philadelphia wherever, or your organization's name wherever it says Baltimore, the organization. And our goal was to arm them with, you know, well-crafted, thoughtful marketing that they could put out to really motivate and inspire their audiences. Everything from, you know, a letter they could write to their board members about why they should want to be part of Giving Tuesday, to social content, to, you know, marketing pieces that could go out. We dripped a whole bunch of content out over time, and, you know, this is just a list of some of the kinds of things. We also gave them visual assets, so there were a whole range of visual ways that we incorporated the campaign into visuals that people could use. And then this list, each one of the things on this list is just a sample of the materials that we made available for free to anybody that wanted to use them. Again, whether they were working with us or not, you know, this was meant to really inspire people and try to make it easy for them to participate in the campaign. So this is just, I mean, this is an example. We did a once-a-week content drip, and that was a very deliberate decision. One of my colleagues is just a rock star marketer who came to us from PayPal, and, you know, my instinct was just on day one to get everything out there, and she said, no, you know, we can build it all in the beginning, but every Tuesday tips, every Tuesday something new went out. And then that way it was fresh, it kept people interested, and it was reinforcing that today's another day that you can be sharing information. You know, I think that it can be overwhelming when you go to our site and you see 100 things you could do. But if you get something on a Tuesday, and today's thing is, you know, here's your social media posts and here's a letter for your board members, right? 2 easy things that you can do. It made it much easier for people to sort of say, okay, I can take an hour and go do that. It didn't seem like, oh my God, there's all this stuff, like where do I start? And so we had sort of our Tuesday tips drip out each week, and that then created ways that people themselves came up with ideas. So one of the nonprofits actually created this little, you know, I love for BMoreGivesMore sign that went viral. So these ended up being all over the place. There's a local shop, this one in the corner here, that's called the Quintessential Gentleman, and it's one of those places, like it's sort of like a spa for men, and they do shaving and all that kind of thing. And they say that, like, Movember, you know, the No Shave November is the worst month of the year for them. And so they did a great BMoreGivesMore campaign where they said, with all the money that you're saving not shaving this month, come and go spend it on Giving Tuesday. You know, so give it to something worthwhile on Giving Tuesday. And they ran that in their store all month long, and in their social media all month long, and they've got a pretty big and interesting social following. So people did a lot of really creative things. This is an example of how a couple nonprofits use some of the assets in their outreach. And these were, you know, literally things that they plucked right out of the site and just put to use in their work. You know, we think, like most things that happen in the social world these days, gamification is a really powerful tool. We had a wide range of both small and large matching fund partners that, you know, either directly supported a nonprofit that they cared about or supported the broader campaign for the city. On the GiveCore site, we have the ability to have rewards, you know, kind of a reward that goes along with giving. And so we literally had restaurants and everybody's favorite running shoe store say, look, we want to reward people who participate in this day. And so every hour there was a different coupon on the site for people that participated throughout the day. And that was great for people because they'd give their $100 to the SPCA and they might get $10 off a pair of running shoes at Charm City Run. But all that stuff really kind of, again, created energy and excitement and made the small business community really feel like they could be part of it. So one of the things that was so exciting about what they did is, for a lot of small businesses, they don't have necessarily a lot of money that they could put in a pot, but we did check presenters that any small business could use, any restaurant, and they put them, you know, they put them in their checks whenever they were giving out checks in the restaurant. A lot of people did the branding on their websites, as you can see here. Some people, as I said, signed up to be rewarders, which was, you know, really exciting. But even if they couldn't, you know, people wanted to sort of be part of it. And we were fine with whatever way that people wanted to participate. And in some cases, there were a couple of restaurants in town, again, kind of new startup restaurants that didn't have any dollars, but they teamed up as group. All their servers during the day did a volunteer activity. So people came up with creative ways to be part of it. So that's our story. And I would lay out a challenge, Philadelphia, because we want to be big. So, you know, come after us, right? Let's have a city throwdown. Even though, honestly, Philly is so much bigger than Baltimore that if you guys really did it, we probably wouldn't stand a chance. But our big thing is Baltimore has this huge rivalry on many levels with Pittsburgh. And so we really want, the Pittsburgh Foundation has just sort of taken on, not necessarily for Giving Tuesday, but they're thinking about sort of a Giving Day structure, and we're hoping that they'll do a little challenge with us in 2014. But we'd love it if Philly would do it also. And then the link up here, it's a really complicated link. So if it's easier, if you just want to give me a business card, or you can shoot me a tweet, I'll send you the link to the Giving Days handbook. Or if you just go to our blog.givecore.com, you can also search it there, and that you can get the Giving Days handbook. And it literally gives a week by week, starting 7 months out, what you should do every day or every week, starting 7 months before the campaign, to get your campaign ready for Giving Tuesday. Thank you.